welcome to the LiveCast Conversations With. On this show, my guests and I explore the bumps and triumphs of their journey to extract the gems from their experiences, because success leaves clues, and today we turn those clues into billboards for you. I'm your host, Gene Bernier, founder of Pealed Back, speaker and co-active coach, guiding leaders to ruthlessly pursue a life worth living. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 87 of LiveCast Conversations With. Today, my guest was supposed to be Collin Mitchell. Unfortunately, some things have come up and we're going to reschedule that one. So I have my good friend Grant Donnelly, who's decided to jump in and hold some space for a conversation about wherever it's going to go. So this may be a preview of what comes up on our show, Friday Thoughts with Grant and Gene. Grant, welcome to the LiveCast Conversations With. You haven't been on this show for some time.
Good job you said that. I haven't, no. And, you know, this is some of the idea that's good at being flexible in what you do. Was there a wee bit of thought process, and you said, hey, are you busy? I'm like, nothing I can't reschedule.
Rescheduling and the flexibility is where it's really all at, right? It's it comes down to that resistance of like, this is an inconvenience. Be like, nah, it's not. Be like, shit happens and it's okay. And guess what? We were able to pop with it and go. And the beauty of it is, on our other show, we already had the branding down below ready to rock. So
and just explore it for what it is.
Yeah,
so,
I think that.
Yeah, maybe turn the tables a wee bit.
Yeah,
you know,
let's do it.
I'm one of I never fucking shut up. Can I say that in this one?
Well, why not?
I don't know. I'd say, I don't know if your live casts are a wee bit more polite than our ones. So, what's been happening with you?
Well, it's been what's been happening with me? That's a big question that all of a sudden I stumbled over. It's been a lot in the last 2 months since I was doing the speaking thing on stage for the Rising Leaders Summit. I feel like a lot has happened, and not all the things that I thought were going to necessarily happen. And the lessons that I've learned from it, I'm actually kind of grateful for. And I'm also realizing that I was kind of like using that as a bit of an excuse for not showing up as well. And I used to be, I was pretty active on our groups, and I was pretty active on LinkedIn and all these other places. And then life kind of threw some curveballs and some things had to be readjusted. And I used it as a reason to be like, I don't know if I'm being authentic, so I'm just not going to show up. But if I were to really dig under all that, be like, I think I was just being a bit of a bitch. I was using my excuse monsters got the best of me.
But did you really say there what you learned? Because you said right at the beginning, I learned some stuff. But I'm not really hearing what the lesson was. I hear excuse monster. I'm not really hearing the lesson. You know?
You know what? The lesson has been...
What was life slapping you about and teaching you at this point?
Honestly, to be present and to take all the things that I've been learning over the last little while, especially going through like my CTI training and stuff, is like, all right, now if you're going to go out here and talk about it and preach about it and like guide people through this, be like, you better be prepared to use it yourself. And life went, ta-da, here's some examples for you, and put me right dead in the middle of it. And what I've learned from this is like, it's hard to describe, but this idea of like I feel at peace with the things that are happening, even though there's a layer of chaos that stands out in front of it. So I can walk into this chaos, and instead of like being like inflamed by it and like being pulled around with it, it's just like, oh, I see you. You're cool too. We're gonna keep on moving. And it's the word relaxing comes up from it. And that never used to be a thing that I would have. I've my wife and will probably easily say he's not a man that relaxes easily, but to be into some of these situations and go, I see the person, I see the the opportunities and I see what I can get from this. And I've also learned, be like, and it's one that has to get repeated often, but it is I can only control myself in this situation. So being able to like reflect in and go, okay, is this how I want to be showing up? And like catching, sometimes if I'm a little sharper than I mean to be, or maybe a little bit quieter than I mean to be, like I'm catching it like instantly going, oop, ouch, oops, sorry. That's not where I meant to be, and this is how I mean to be showing up. And it's interesting going through all this and finding out what's actually important from this place of like peace underneath the chaos.
Interesting you said that, because I was actually right before one of the things, I won't call it doom scrolling. It was deliberate, intended scrolling.
Yeah.
And it was one of the things, and it was a post by Rich Roll. And that's exactly what he was talking about what you can control. And you can only control what's within you. You can't, you can't control what the reaction of somebody is. You cannot control what life is going to throw at you, But I was playing with that and you know me, the devil's advocate side of thing, I'll come in for the other side. It's like, well, I agree, you can't control.
Yeah.
But you can influence.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because if you decide to show up as a dick, guess what? Chances of people treating you like a nice person,
pretty high.
Slim to none. Right? But if you show up as, shall we say, the good guy,
yeah,
chances are people will treat you a wee bit better. Now, I agree you can't control it, but you can have an influence on it. And I think we forget that.
Yeah, it's so I just noticed that our guest popped in there for a minute, so we'll see if he comes back.
See if he comes back in. I'm great. If he comes back in, you can wrap him right in this conversation and get on with the game. If I manage to fill that space for you, that's all good with me.
That's what's important. No, so I think it really comes back down to the whole where that what you can influence is like a friend Trent Janish always talks about how you hit the bat. So actually, well, let's see if we've got. Hey, Collin.
Hey, man. I am so sorry.
It's all good, brother. It's all good. Everything happens for a reason.
My wife and I just had our fourth kid, and sometimes things get a little bit crazy here, and we just drop the ball here.
It's all good. How old is your so the fourth is just a baby?
4.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is she's 6 weeks now.
Oh, wow. Just the new. Still have the newborn smell and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody says, oh, you got to love that time. It's all nice and fun.
No, I'm just kidding. It's fun. But it's a lot of work, too. And, now she's starting to smile and stuff like that. So, like, it's starting to get fun.
That's
well,
awesome.
I don't want to crowd your party because I was only, helping this man stay relaxed.
True to the schedule. We're finding the peace within the chaos.
So I'm sure he can sign me off. Have a fun time. And try and catch up there. Cheers, people.
All right. Thanks, Grant. We'll have to bring Grant into the Salescast community because me and him host another show on Friday. So, welcome, man. Collin.
Yes.
Thanks so much for being on here and being able to be flexible within the realms of parenthood. I understand I've got 4 as well, probably on a little bit of the older spectrum. Yeah, mine are like 15, 14, 13, and 9. So a little bit further beyond the brand new baby smell, though.
But similar age gaps as mine. You're just a little further ahead. So I've got 7, almost 6, almost 4.
Yeah.
And then 6 weeks.
Oh, wow. How's everybody adjusting to the little one?
Oh, they're being crazy, acting out, giving us heck, pushing their limits, seeing how far they can push our buttons.
doing exactly what little humans are meant to do. Be like, I think of them always as like from Jurassic Park when the raptors in the first one were always testing the cage to see where they could get out, and it's just like kids are raptors. They're gonna keep testing the cage and find the weak spot, and then look out.
Yeah, and then it's like you get upset, but you're like, well, why would you expect anything else? You expect them to be well-behaved, polite, respectful little people? Not quite there yet. Not quite there.
No, not quite. And well, that's kind of a similar topic that Grant and I were talking about before you hopped on. It's just like, all right, this is what it is, and I'm gonna have to either adjust my expectations because the perception of what's happening, I don't think it's gonna change anytime soon.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Is like when you're getting upset or feeling frustrated, it really has nothing to do with them or how they're acting. It's more to do with what sort of frame of mind or, what sort of place you're in. It's like, well, you're getting frustrated because it really has more to do with me than them.
100% it does, and that shows up in all areas of our life, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Well, we're a little disjointed, but I'd love to still actually do a proper introduction to the audience for you here, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So Collin is a 4 times founder, passionate about sales, entrepreneurship, and podcasting. He has trained hundreds of reps and personally closed over 100 million in sales. Collin is the co-founder of Salescast and the host of Sales Transformation, which is a top 1% sales podcast. Collin lives in LA with his beautiful wife and 4 kids, and apparently a new puppy. Man, a new puppy on top of it with a new baby.
Yeah, we just like to keep.
You're glutton for punishment.
Yeah, just keep layering it on. Can't possibly get bored.
That is, and very little sleep on top of it. So like it's a great mix.
Yeah, sleep's overrated. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, when you're not chasing puppies and dealing with 4 children, tell me a little bit about like your role with Salescast. And I love you guys' mission about helping entrepreneurs and B2B people create their podcasts that are revenue first. And kind of love to hear about the journey that got you to where that mission is today.
Yeah, so I'll take you back just a little bit further and then give you a bit of like the origin story, which will help you kind of understand how things just organically have transpired. So I've 4th company that I founded. Before that, I had an IT VAR company, grew that from 0 to 5 million in 26 months. I then founded a unified communications company, which I scaled from 0 to 6,000 companies on that platform in like a little over 2 years. Recently exited that company. But I went on a podcast for the very first time, which was my now co-founder's podcast. He asked me to come on. It was like pre-pandemic in the studio, great experience, had a ton of fun. We talked about like work-life balance, which was, a thing that people didn't know was going to become a huge problem in the next like month or 30 days after that initial interview. Now there's like no such thing. There's like work-life integration.
Ooh, I like that idea better.
And I was like, man, I think I want to start a podcast. I'm trying to get a little more serious about my personal brand and creating content and doing stuff like that. And he's like, sure, I'll help you. And it was super casual. He made it easy. I was like, yeah, I am super busy. I think I can do 1 or 2 episodes per month, which is a horrible idea. And he's like, yeah, whatever you want to do. And then had a conversation with a really successful podcaster, which was a good friend of his. And he's like, oh no, man, you got to like record 20 episodes and release them daily. And you'll hack the Apple algorithm and be on the new noteworthy section and like, sail off into the, with, successful podcast and all that. Right? So like 20 episodes. And I was like, all right, fine. I'm up for the challenge. Let's do it. Yeah. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about. He's been podcasting for a while. Well, supposedly when he started his podcast, that was a thing. Like, right. If you recorded 20, you release them daily, you get in the new noteworthy section of Apple and like pick up a bunch of listeners like really early on. But unfortunately, it doesn't work anymore. So anybody who's thinking about trying it, done that, didn't work, just had an ordinary old podcast and did a lot of episodes in a short period of time. But what happened was we got to experience working together. We worked together extremely well, cranking out content at a high frequency. And we originally started that podcast under the UCAS, Unified Communications Company that I was that had at the time. And then Chris was doing some marketing work for us, and we were doing the podcast. And we sort of had some goals in growing that business through the podcast, which is really where we specialize, right? Is we work with B2B brands that want to drive revenue through podcasting. That could be either aligning with some business objectives or creating it as a separate business unit, right? And it didn't really work. But the thing that kept happening, and what we found is because it was a really transactional product and it just didn't work. It really works in a more relationship, driven, sales process, depending on what you do. And what kept happening is people that would come on my show would be like, "Oh, Collin, I really want to start a podcast. How do I do that?" And I was like, I think we're kind of onto something here. We enjoy working together. And so that's sort of how Salescast was born.
Yeah, I love those like happenstance when you're just doing the things that you love and you're like, I don't know what this is going to happen. And then you're listening for what are people actually asking me and what are people signaling out there going, oh, they're legitimately going, I think I could do a podcast. How are you guys doing this one? Be like, we can help you with that.
Yeah. And even that's still even true today, right? Because we're always listening to what people in the community are saying, which you're a part of the community. So we have a podcast community. And so we're listening to what people are saying in there. We're listening to the feedback that we get from the events that we do. We're listening to what our customers are saying. And we're just always testing new things constantly. And, we're not a good fit for everybody, but that's kind of the reason we started the community because last year, Chris and I talked to 1,400 something, almost 1,500 people.
Oh, wow.
That were either wanting to start a podcast or had already started a podcast. And not all of them were a fit to work with us, but there wasn't really a lot that we could do for them other than like maybe let them pick our brain for 30 minutes and kind of send them on their way. And many of those people took that information and started the podcast and like are doing well. But that was only making a small dent, right? And half of the podcasts that launch fail. Many of them, more than half of them, never make it to episode 10, right? So if you're like have a podcast and you've hit episode 10, like you have a good chance of you're further along than most.
Well, and I've seen that in other ones too. And the gentleman that left here before is like he'd tried to start one on his own a year ago, and I think he got to episode 9 and it fizzled out in front of him. And so we're running joke between 10 and 13, be like, this is the magic hour. This one either stays or goes away.
Yeah. And, and I think it's mainly just because people have lack of support, lack of knowledge, lack of resources. In a lot of cases, people start it for the wrong reasons as well. Like starting a podcast because everybody else is doing it. Not a good reason to start a podcast.
No, because they're a lot of work and it becomes another thing that you have to keep going and keep doing it, just adding to your plate. And if it's just keeping up with the Joneses, makes it really tough to be like, oh, man, maybe I'll just let this one slip. And then it goes downhill from there.
Yeah. And especially like the folks that are doing a lot of the editing and post-production and stuff themselves, like they put, it's like their baby, they care too much. They're like, everything's got to be perfect. And perfect is really an illusion.
Oh, 100% agree with that. And also feeling like I am the solo guy that's doing all the work, right? And the reason I went live with it is because I didn't want to do all the editing and didn't want to, like, I knew that was going to be my break. Like that was going to be the thing that was going to be like, it would get backed up. And next thing you know, it'd be like, it would become this thing that I wish I had done. Whereas when we go live, be like, whatever happens, and it's out there. And then we can go from there and
I love that. I love that.
Micros.
Well, because I even tell folks that do it on their own to use StreamYard, which is what we're using today, right?
Yeah.
And even if they go live or they don't, you can really streamline a lot of things to minimize a lot of the post-production work that, I mean, I've talked to people that spend 8 hours per episode post-production. Now that's a bit of an extreme. I mean, they're probably getting rid of every little dead space and every and every awe. And,
Yeah.
finding the perfect moment for short, like that's extreme. He's trying to cut it down to 4. I'm like, it should be 1 or 2 maybe. But some people just enjoy that work though too.
Yeah.
On the flip side, if you're a creative person, which I am not, like that type of work would drive me insane. To be totally fair, like I have never edited an episode ever in my life, nor do I ever wish to.
Yeah, but that's not where your superpower lies, right? Like your strength is quite clearly in the building of the relationships, doing the sales, talking about why it's important to actually monetize these things that we're on, and that's it. And then somebody else gets to come in and do what they're great at, is cleaning it up, finding the micro content, and really hammering everything home.
Yeah, exactly. No, you got to know yourself well enough, right? And like, sounds like you know yourself enough to know that like you would not enjoy editing. And so if it's live, it's out there. Whatever like there's nothing to edit. It's out there. If it's really bad, like, I don't know, maybe like some, somebody shows up late or something like that. Like you could always just pull
the
down.
Worst, right? And then you have to pull in these your backup and all those other things, but
yeah.
But you still get to roll with it, right? Like, because this is, if Grant wasn't going to be there, I'm like, I'm just going to wing 10 to 15 minutes of talking about resistance and where that shows up and how that happens, right? I had something ready in case that happened, right? And
I'm guessing it's happened before.
Only once.
Oh man.
So
I still feel bad, but not as bad.
But you still made it, and I understood. I'm just like, well, you know what? Life happens.
Yeah.
Collin's a busy guy, and he's got a lot on his plate. If he shows, cool. If he doesn't, cool too. We'll reschedule. I look forward to the conversation, right? Like, that's why I do this, is like, I love doing these. I love just having great conversations with people and finding out where they go. Hence why there's no script to this, except for the last question, which we'll get to. But we just follow the track to see what comes up, because I find that has been the best part for like shaking up the gems of people's experiences through their bumps and their triumphs, because I think it's Jim Rohn that says that success leaves clues. And from the intro that I have now, and big thanks to Mariano for building that, because I'm not creative either and he is, so he's a rock star. But it's our job to kind of turn those into billboards, right? Like if that's where the power is going to be, that's what fuels me. And like, this is episode 87. I actually pre-recorded episode 89 because I'm away on the week that it drops. It's just like, I'm almost at 100, which is like, then what?
Yeah, celebrate and then go to 101.
Yeah, exactly. It just keeps going.
Yeah. You gonna do anything big for episode 100?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's going to have to... I don't know. That's a good question. I've been thinking about what that could be. And maybe like bringing in some past guests, or making it like a montage episode of like greatest hits.
Yeah, greatest hits are fun. A little bit of a compilation of the best moments from... But you're always going to forget one, right? And it'll be the person that's like, I didn't get included.
That is also my fear, because now at that point there'll be over 100 guests. Be like, so you didn't think mine was good enough? Be like, to be honest, I forgot about it, and it's not that says more about me than anything about you. That's all that is. Lots on the mind.
I guess you could have 100 clips, but that would be a bit of a long compilation.
Yes. Well, you could bring on like a round table of like past guests around certain topics and stuff, but we'll see. I don't know. I think in my mind's eye, where I'm seeing this is actually taking it and starting to deploy it in an audible format. Is like, when we get to 100, then this becomes real, and I start to reposition a lot of it. Yeah. And actually, like, listening to yourself, and I spoke with Chris on one of the Meetsy things, is like, I've probably done a disservice by not like monetizing this for myself in any shape or form, other than just like, I get to have cool conversations. I think by the time we get to 100, my goal is to have a much more like, what's next plan for this.
Yeah, but even it's interesting, because a lot of people are worried about that monetizing, or that one to many, right? The followers, the YouTube subscribers, the podcast listeners. It's easy to get caught up in all of that stuff.
Oh yeah.
But it also can sort of make you forget about the most valuable thing, which is the one-to-one, right? The relationships with the people that you have on, the things that you learn, the doors that get open, future collaborations, like so many things happen just by building those relationships. I'm sure you've heard, people tell you all the time, or you hear it or you see it or whatever, is, your network, your network will help you build your net worth, or I don't know, the saying's something like that.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah.
I've heard that one before too. And it's totally true. And it's, I'm grateful for the people that take the opportunity to come be on this show and see where it goes, and knowing that there's no script, and knowing that we're just going to have an open, honest, live conversation. So it's the fact that I've talked 89 people into it so far, or 89 beyond, because I've had a few extra guests and roundtables. Be like, that's an accomplishment in itself, and that's a lot of relationships that have been created, and opportunities that have been forged, and connections to share among guests and everything else. And that in itself is enough reward for it, really.
Yeah, this has become the show about the show.
I'm being put on the other side here, I think, slowly.
Yeah, we switched seats there for a minute. But it's fun. I find that, I've done 270 episodes now.
Yeah.
And then I had another show that I did almost 100 episodes on.
Oh, wow.
And the episodes that are the best are the ones that are highly conversational.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes you get a guest that even you can explain that to them, and they just like to go on a rant, and you're like,
yeah,
kind of told you this is not what it was supposed to be, but you didn't understand. Those aren't as fun, But when it's a bit of banter, it's a bit of back and forth, it's more conversational. The people listening enjoy it more. It's more enjoyable for both the guest and the host.
Oh, 100%, right? You get this energy that's happening, and I don't know. I agree. The ones that are like highly conversational, where it's back and forth, some reflections that are happening. I find we go into like the deepest little corners that are the most unexpected too, and most of the time totally off track for like what their business or what their role is, like really, really personal things. And it's I don't know. That's a lot of. I don't know. It's an honor, but it's also a lot of fun.
Yeah. Totally agree.
So you've done two podcasts, one at 100, one at 280 and change.
Yeah.
What have you learned about yourself going through that experience? Because that's a lot of content, and a lot of interviews and episodes, and putting yourself in front of the microphone, going, "All right, subconscious, be a pal, and let's get this going."
Yeah. The thing that I've learned, I think, early on, that really scares a lot of people, is you just have to realize and embrace that at first you're going to suck at this. Like many people that I talk to that want to start creating content or live or podcast or whatever, right? They're all kind of the same now. It's like there's no line in the sand, right? Is they can't get over the fear of not being good at it. And I like to just get right in front of it and say, look, you're going to suck at this at first. And that is totally okay. But you will get better.
Oh, 100%.
And
if you're open to that too, right? It's just like
some people
are
aren't
willing to learn from it and listen from it and grow from it. And you're right. There are people that are just like, I'm just going to keep doing the same thing and hope that something different happens. Be like, that's not how it works. Yeah.
Or they just can't wrap their head around not being good at something or not being perfect, right? Yeah. And so, so that's the big thing, right? Is you will get better over time. And there's so many skills. It's really a transformational process, to be honest. Like there's so many things about, hosting a show, creating content, being an interviewer, that there's so many skills that you acquire about learning better questions and, learning how to listen better and being more curious, and even just the things that you learn from the people that come on, which is incredible. It really transforms you as a person, personally and professionally, which most people don't sign up for the activity because of that. And like, if I were to tell somebody just getting started that, they think it's like some sort of magic fairy dust or snake oil or total BS, right? But it's real. Like, I don't know. What's your experience been?
Oh, 100% right. Like thinking about the early episodes is like I was doing them on Zoom. Literally, I had a friend from New Zealand that we talked about like doing this, and he's like, "Yeah, you should do that." So I messaged him on like a Saturday. I'm like, "What are you doing? You want to go live right now? I want to try this out." And that was episode like I'm just like, "Screw it. I just need to get over the hump and do the first one." And it was like trying to like figure out how to like get the Zoom connections to work, and it was glitchy, and I was using just my laptop microphone, so I'm pretty sure the sound was
Yeah.
complete garbage, and like all
Yeah.
these other things that you go along. But I just made the commitment, like every week I'm just going to do 1% better. What's that one little thing that I could just like make a little bit better? And we figured out how to streamline Zoom. And then by episode 5, I'd switched over to StreamYard. I'm like, this is like the mecca of making this easy. And
Yeah.
then slowly the graphics started to come in. And you know, you can look on my YouTube page and you'll just see all the back or like the intro images change and evolve over time. And just the experience with it as well has been it's been great. Like I think the personal growth I knew was going to be there, but like just how much calmer it is to be behind this microphone now, and compared to like the yeah every show I get a little bit nervous. That still
Yeah.
happens,
See,
but
that's the big thing right there, right? Is
yeah
that confidence that you've even just built over time of
yeah
doing this activity, right? So if we take it back to like early episodes, like it's painful. Some people, I mean, for me personally, I couldn't even listen to the first few. Not a good idea.
yeah
Highly recommend you re-listen to those early,
oh
first
yeah
episodes. My wife would listen to them and give me feedback. And at one point, I think she told me, she's like, "You actually are not a good listener." I'm like, "Whoa." And she's like, I thought we had a bigger problem, but she was just talking about it in the podcast. Right. She was right. And it was because I was just so in my head about
yeah
what the next question is I was going to ask, because I was so nervous that I wasn't going to have anything to talk about with this person. I didn't do any prep work. We literally just booked the session, hopped on to have a conversation. That's the way I always wanted it to be, is I
yeah
didn't want people to over prepare. But then I was sort of over preparing in my head. And I was like thinking about the next thing I want to ask Gene, right? And then like,
yeah
I'm missing what you're saying because I'm thinking
yes
about that. And I
I
told
did,
Chris, my co-founder, man, what do I do? And he's like, and I'm a big mindfulness guy. I've been meditating for over about 14 years. And he's like, man, it's just like meditation. Like when you're meditating, you bring it back to the breath. When you have a thought, when you come up with this question that you think you need to ask, it's like, bring it back to listening, bring it back to listening. And that's helped me tremendously.
oh yeah no I'd have to put a plus side behind that, because like definitely in the earlier episodes and experiences with it, be like I had this like idea that I had to come up with like witty and like thought-provoking questions.
Yeah.
And I guarantee, looking back at some of those things that weren't when I started interviewing people that were beyond just my friend circle, it probably felt a little bit choppy, where now it's just like it's okay if there's like a few seconds space in between, like that's okay, because something else will come up if I trust in the process, being like, if I'm listening, I can work towards understanding. For me, like that's my big thing, is like can I understand what they're trying to say and reflect that. And usually that's where like then when all of a sudden someone's just like, oh, you heard me, be like, yeah, I heard you, let's go. Then that's when it really opens.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then that's when you come up with questions much deeper, much better than whatever that silly question you had floating up in your head about trying to get to the next point.
Oh, 100% right. And there's that component of that self-management. I love the reference back to meditation that you made. It's like, it totally is. It's just like, catch it. You're not in danger. No saber-toothed tigers are coming. Calm down and get back into it.
Maybe some raptors or young children.
If they've got, be like, make sure before you come down to do your show, the fence is electrified so they can't get out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've got 2 dogs, and they're actually behaving today, so they're just as bad as little raptors.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've got a small one, but she can't make it in here. Luckily, my office is sort of separate from the house. So like,
Oh, nice.
they've got a, it's a process for them to get out of here, and I can get a little warning with the door opening. So
Yeah.
can hurry up and press mute and be like, oh.
Hey guys.
Yeah.
Well, with little ones, it's like, what is your if they do come into your studio area, do you take the mute? Do you talk to them, or is it like trying to, hey guys, Dad's on a call right now?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the situation, right? If we're recording a podcast episode, I kind of try to shoo them away.
Yeah.
If it's a sales call or a call with somebody on my team, hey, they might come up and say hello. And then that's totally understandable. Most people aren't going to have a problem with that, and if they do, I don't want to work with them anyway. So
be like, thanks for self-selecting yourself out, and away we go.
Thanks for passing not passing the you are an a-hole test.
The vibe check is a fail, unfortunately.
Yeah. So if it's and then if we're doing a live, then it's like try to shoo them away without looking like a crazy man on screen.
I'm pretty sure there's a few lives that when I look back at them, I'll be looking over here because they come downstairs, take the earpiece out. Hi, love you, and then I gotta go back to it.
Yeah, or just a quick off screen.
So we didn't really get a big chance to talk about Salescast itself, and tell us a little bit about who you help, why you're helping them, and how this mission to 100 million sellers is part of your guys' mission that's on your site right now.
Yeah, so connect 100 million sellers to the power of story through podcasting. That's actually a goal that Chris had set when he first started podcasting, when he had no business, literally a $30 mic, and just started interviewing people. And that was sort of his mission. And I don't think he really even knew how he was going to do it. And then we met, and it was like, no, we can actually do this, and here's how we're going to do it. And part of that is also, and so just to give some context, right? What is Salescast? Well, I don't like the term, but it's the simplest way for people to understand. We're a podcast agency. We handle production, strategy, growth, monetization, booking people on high quality shows. That's really what we do. But there's a bigger mission driving that, right? Is we want to change the way B2B sales is done. Everybody is used to, high pressure sales tactics, squeeze funnels and robotic LinkedIn DMs and spam messages that nobody asked for. And sort of the art of one-to-one relationships has been lost. And we believe podcasting is the perfect medium to sort of bring that back. And there's a lot of people that are starving for that connection, right? I mean, like I said, I've 380 episodes, most of those interviews. And those are all people that I have great relationships with. These are people that, send me, awesome gifts like this right here, and invited me and my whole family to their house. And oh, wow. We either do business together, support each other's business, that, your network is your net worth is really true. And, podcasting is the perfect place to do that. And that's sort of our way of putting a dent in that. And then the way the community started is sort of, when Chris and I talked to 1,500 plus, or around 1,500 people last year, and realized there was only a handful that we could actually help and work with, that were a good fit to work with us and had budget and that sort of thing and goals aligned. We couldn't help those folks. And it was like, how are we going to help less podcasters fail? And it was like, we're going to give them the tools, the resources, the connections, the relationships, the support that they need to be successful, even though maybe they're not the best fit for us, and maybe even though they can't afford to work with us.
Yeah. So you found your way to be like, hey, we know who we work with. We know who the right relationships are that get the best results from the work we do. And there's this whole ecosystem that's all these little cherries on top. Be like, what do we do with this? And build the community and build the support, because the more they're out there being successful, really at the end of the day, the pie just gets bigger the more we share it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, some of those people get in there, get to work, and then they do arrive to a point where it's like, oh, it makes sense for us to work together, but they need certain things, just like knowing what, tech to use, what, equipment to use, what hosting platform to use, how to, maybe start monetizing earlier than they may have thought of. So there's a lot of things where there isn't really any great podcast communities that I found. The ones that existed before were like Facebook groups that were less than good.
Right, they're all kind of on there for their own self-serving reasons, not for like the betterment of everybody that's there.
Well, what I found is
Maybe
a lot
my
of
words.
what I found is a lot of the Facebook groups are like there's one person, brand, or thing in there with a very clear agenda, which is to sell to these people. And like, do we have something to sell to the people in the community? Yes, but that's really not the main thing. We're just trying to help folks, and like, if it makes sense to work together, cool. If not, there's a ton of value. And more than anything, just having a place where people can connect with other podcasters and have a bit of a support system is super helpful.
Oh, 100%. And how long have you and Chris been doing your Friday webinars? Because I've noticed those have been popping up more frequently. Is that a new thing, or is that something that's been around for a while?
Yeah, so we were doing some events in the past, and we had an incredible positive response to some of our like core topics that we do. It's like getting yourself booked on 3+ podcasts a week, and how to launch your show in one day. And then we've done one on growth and monetization as well. And then now we've been doing a bunch of other topics and things that are related to, like tomorrow we're doing one on building authentic relationships on social, which is relatable for podcasters. And then we're doing one on how to build your podcast community. So to answer your question, we've done some in the past. And then when 2022 came, we're like, we're going to do them weekly. And we started doing them weekly. And then I had the baby. And so we sort of hit pause. And then now we've resumed that. So basically we have that time blocked out every Friday. We're doing an event. It's a hustle because you only have a week to market each event.
Yeah.
And so as soon as you stop marketing one event, you're marketing the next event. So each week, the process and the attendance is getting better and things like that. And not every topic's relevant to everybody. But our last event, we got 100 people to sign up.
Oh, wow.
We got, I think 30% to show up, which is about 10% more than sort of the average. A lot of times when you do a webinar, about 20% are actually going to show.
Yeah.
And so, it's exciting. It's fun. We bring other experts on. Sometimes we're sharing content. Sometimes it's more panel style.
That's really cool, man. Well, and you guys are delivering a lot of value, and I can speak for it because I've been in there and seeing what's happening and seeing some of these episodes that you're putting out in webinars is like, you guys are the real deal. You're providing a real value to everybody that's in that, regardless if they're a client or not.
Yeah. Which one did you make it to?
Which one was it? One of the monetizing ones. My Swiss cheese memory is totally losing my track here. But I was talking about monetization because that was something that's been top of mind going, what is next roadmap. So
Yeah. And there's a lot of different ways to get creative with that, right? It's not always the typical run ads and sponsors. Yeah. That's kind of the path that a lot of people take. But there's, my show specifically has 3 revenue streams. And there's really about 10, last time I think I counted, there's like 10 different ways you could potentially, monetize your show. I stick with 3 because that's just what's worked for me, but it's different for everybody.
Was there a reason that you were attracted to the 3 that you use for your show?
So one of the primary monetizations for my show is my guests become clients.
Yeah.
And that was sort of our original idea when we started podcasts. It was like people using their show to open doors, build relationships, and essentially close deals, which happens very organically if done right. If you and I spend 45, 60 minutes together, the talk track is mostly focused on me. At the end, when we're done, like I'm left a little bit more interested in you, right? And like want to know more about what you do, right?
Yeah.
And so that naturally just happens because human beings are curious. Unless they're like narcissistic, then like, you know,
They're
you're
like,
going to get some of those.
yeah, and they'd be like, oh, thanks for filling my love tank, and bye now.
Yeah. Thanks so much. See you later. Got to run. But so, it happens. And, especially if you're strategic with your targeting, if you ask the right people, like, who you work with. And if you ask them on your show and you give a good experience, if you can solve a problem for them, they're happy to let you solve it for them.
Yeah.
So that's one of the primary revenue streams from my show. The second one is sponsors, which just happened. It was more, my show grew significantly, where it got to the place where it's like, if we don't have sponsors on the show, we're leaving money on the table. Plus, it was something we needed to try to figure out for clients, right? So my show is sort of the testing ground for a lot of things that we do. And so, having sponsors, figuring that out, sort of testing the market. My show was the first opportunity that we got to really start to understand that better. And now we're starting to do that for clients, and we're starting to build up an ad network of people who want to monetize their show, who can become part of our network, because brands are starting to reach out to us saying, hey, we see the shows you're working with. We want to sponsor shows. Can you help us?
Right.
And so we've learned a lot in that time, which has sort of led us up to this place.
Awesome.
And then the third one is people pay to come on my show. And this is something that I started doing a bit more manual, where people would reach out, right? I get all the outreach. People pitching people to come on the show. Most of the outreach is garbage, but it's like occasionally if it's like, well, that person actually looks like a good fit, even though their outreach is garbage. Then I started charging people to just come on. And then Travis Chappell recently rolled out a new platform called Guestio, which is pretty awesome. And it basically streamlines that process for people who have a show, because it will show, past guests that have been on there with reviews. It'll show like legitimately your reach, like they verify your reach. And then you can set a price for people to come on. And I think if a lot of people think, well, oh, does that diminish the quality of your guests? And it's like, no, you still have a qualification process of like, is this person a good fit? But if they see value in coming on your platform that you're putting all your hard work, blood and sweat into, they should be more than happy to pay to come on.
Right. That's a great component. Great perspective of looking at that is like, well, you're coming on and this gets to be a bit of an advertisement for you. You get to show who you are, what you do, and really be front and center for 20 to 45 minutes. Yeah.
And hopefully they don't come on and just do a big sales pitch, because that's annoying, right? But, I think the people that I've had that have paid to come on have never done that. And they take it a little more seriously too, and they're happy to promote it. And the first 48 hours that I used Guestio, I made like $2,000 for people paying to come on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a lot, but I mean, if that's happening on a regular basis and you're not monetizing your show at all, that's a really easy, comfortable place to start.
Oh, 100% right. And one of the topics that you just said there as well is like, when people pay for something, they usually are a lot more involved and engaged in taking it seriously. Like same thing with like signing up for webinars. Be like, we've all done it, or we've all signed up for online events that were free. Be like, I have good intentions of making it to that. And then be like, I didn't. And moving on, right? But if you pay for it, and I found this with almost everything we've done. I did a lot of like work with volunteer communities and stuff. It's like when we ran events and we even had a small door charge, we got better attendance.
Yeah. And I think for people who are doing events or things like that, it's always like, oh, we're going to get less attendance if we charge people. And it's not necessarily true. I mean, maybe you get less, but you're going to get more qualified people, or people that are taking that topic more seriously, or people that are ready to take action around that topic.
They're highly engaged. So the quality of their attendance is like way more than somebody that's like sitting around checking their phone while passively listening to what's going on, right?
Yeah. I mean, there we go. I don't know. Maybe we start charging for the Friday events now. Yeah, we'll keep doing them for free. We put all the recordings into our, we have like a subscription where people can upgrade for community, but we put all the recordings in there for folks if they want to get them. And, it's fun for us, honestly, more than anything. And it also creates a content engine. So we basically also have a podcast for podcasters that's like a daily content. And so we also pull a lot of nuggets from those sessions to feed that podcast.
Right. So it's all just feeding the machine, and it's all, at the end of the day, adding to building towards your mission.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I want to be respectful of your time, Collin. I know you've got the little one and everything else at home. So before we let you go and get to our last question, is there any other shout outs you'd like to give for you, your team, or anything else?
Good question. I mean, my co-founder, Chris, like what we do wouldn't be possible without him. And then we've got an incredible team. I mean, we've only been doing this for about 2 years. We've got almost 20 people on the team. We're looking to add another 5 or 6 here shortly. And they all do incredible work. And without any of them, like what we do would not be possible.
That's awesome. All right. And so before we let you go, I have one question that I ask everybody, but we're shifting it now. Previously, we would jump into a time machine, go back 10 years, and you drop off a piece of advice. Now, we're jumping into the same time machine, but we're going forward. We're going to go meet yourself 10 years in the future. What's that piece of advice he would give you?
What would my future self tell me?
Yeah.
So my future self would tell me, man, that's a tough question. My future self would tell me to just enjoy the journey. Sometimes it's really hard for me to like focus on the goal and the goalpost.
Yeah.
That it's like you can miss part of the journey and the experience.
That's a great piece of advice to be given right now, especially with where you're at, busy company and busy house.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to slow down, and it's hard.
Exactly.
It's hard.
Oh, it very much is. Well, man, thank you so much for being on episode 87 today. I really appreciate that you were able to jump on and that we got to have this great conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. And to everybody else, thanks for watching LiveCast Conversations With. As always, I'm Gene, and we will see you next Wednesday.